Hi, and welcome to Just One More Thing. I'm your host, Janessa. This is a podcast about knitting and spinning and crochet and all kinds of other fun, crafty endeavors that I get up to now and then. This is episode 6, take 2. I hope this take works. The last time I had a really nice long video and no sound. So, yikes. Hopefully this time it takes. If not, I'm not quite sure what we're going to do to fix that problem. If you're listening to this, obviously the problem was fixed. I'm just talking to myself. So how was your week? I hope you had a good one. I got a decent amount done over the last week. It wasn't too bad. Lots of spinning is pretty much what got accomplished, which means I have a finished spinning project to show you. I also have a couple of FOs and just a few things on the needles because I've got 2 big projects coming up. And I don't want to put too much on the needles until those happen, and they aren't going to happen until towards the end of the week. So let's get started. I had fun last week showing you my finished objects at the top of the episode, so we're going to do that again. The first one I'm going to show you is not the one conspicuously atop of my head. We'll get to that one in a minute. But first, I want to show you the Down River Cowl. This was clue 1, so I'm showing it to you upside down. Let's do it this way. Here was clue 1. The lace was clue 2. And this wee little navy part here at the top was clue 3. I'll try to stretch that out to show you the little eyelet is what's supposed to show up. Is that little eyelet part. So do you remember when I said, oh yeah, I ran out of yarn for this section, but I have plenty of navy to finish it off? Nope. I ran out of navy too. This section here, this eyelet section, should be about 4 more rows. So it's hard to see. There's like a little eyelet here and an offset one here and one here. And then there should be another, like there should be 4 groupings of eyelets on that section. I ran out of yarn, and it was my own fault. Mainly because I did not measure my yarn or weigh it in any kind of a way before I started the project. I just eyeballed it, and I was like, yeah, that looks like about 200, I can't remember what the yardage was on it. It's like, yeah, that'll work. It didn't. Yeah, that never works out right. But then I also cast on extra stitches so that I would have a really nice long cowl that I could double like this. I wanted it to be one that you could double up and wear really warm, like up around your neck in the winter. Even though this is meant as a springtime cowl that you're supposed to knit in like not quite such a woolly yarn, and it has lots of lace and stuff in it, I knit it as a winter one, but I like it. Next time, and I do plan to make more of these for Christmas gifts, next time I'll use smoother yarn and I won't use any variegated. So those are my tips if you decide to make it for yourself. As you can see, I am wearing my extra slouchy It's a Girl Thing hat by Joji Locatelli. I would take it off, but my hair's giving me enough trouble as it is after 2 takes of taking it on and off. So I'm gonna leave it on. But I'm happy with how it turned out. Nice and slouchy. And you can see, I'll put up some pictures here. You can see the top of it turned out really, really nice. the lace section. It gave me a couple of fits. I'm a left-handed knitter, and basically what that means is that on written patterns, I have to flip everything. Like if you're reading through a pattern and it says knit 2 together, knit so many, slip slip knit, so that you get decreases that do this, like for a toe is probably the one that most people are familiar with, is that you do knit 2 together and then you slip slip knit. And you get, actually, I'm telling you backwards, I'm like, er. So knitters who are right-handed knit in this direction from their right hand. The working stitches are on their left hand needle and their right hand's doing all the work, and they're knitting, 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 and then all the stitches end up over here and they flip it. So they do a knit 2 together and they do a slip slip knit, and the increases face each other and they get a nice wedge toe. Make sense? I have all of my stitches over here on my right hand, my empty needles in my left hand. I knit this direction and then I flip it. Yeah, this. So when if I were to do a knit 2 together, slip slip knit, I end up with decreases that face away from each other instead of facing each other. So I have to flip it. I have to do a slip slip knit and knit 2 together to get this type of decrease. And I think I've been saying increase and I've been saying it wrong. This is the second take I've tried to do this. It's not working. So yeah, it's backwards for me for most things, and cable crosses, all that, it all flips. Most of the time it doesn't matter unless I'm doing directional increases and decreases in cables and things. Sometimes it's fine just to end up with a mirror image. When I'm going through a pattern and it says, okay, you're picking up for the left front, I'm actually doing the right. Instead of knitting the left-handed mitten, I'm knitting the right-handed mitten. All of those types of things. So I'm a quirky, weird knitter. I do things all backwards. However, knitting from a chart is easier because I can see the direction of things that are going. Like I can see I need a decrease that leans this way and a decrease that leans this way, or an increase that leans in a certain way, or a cable that is going to cross, you know, this way or this way. Like I can see that. I actually knit from a chart reading, I don't know, here's a tip for you if you are not used to knitting from charts, or if you're a left-handed knitter and you always end up with something backwards when you knit from a chart. A chart is meant to be how exactly the front side of your knitting should look. Sorry, I'm playing with a rubber band. So the reason you read a chart from right to left is because that's how you knit. Except for me, I knit from left to right, so I have to read charts from left to right. The chart for this was not an easy one to read backwards. There's, I don't want to give too much away, but it's not just a straightforward chart. There's some movement in the chart, where stitches are, because it's a weird chart, and I had a lot of trouble with it. So I found myself flipping back and forth and trying to look at the chart and be like, okay, I need increases to go this direction. But then, like, the chart didn't make sense reading it or knitting it in that direction, so I ended up knitting it backwards. It was really messed up, and there were about 10 times where I was like, I think I'm doing this wrong. I trusted myself, though, that yes, you've done this before, you can do this. I ended up with something that looks amazingly exactly like it's supposed to, but it took a lot of mental gymnastics to get there. But other than that, I loved the pattern. If you're a right-handed knitter and you don't have to do mental gymnastics to get your lace patterns to look the way that they're supposed to look, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. I was very happy with the stripes. I ended up using Where's the other one? I still have a lot of yarn left. These two are the stripes. This is Knit Picks palette in Wallaby and Oregon Ghost Heather and Marine Heather. There you can see the colors. So yeah, like probably not even half, maybe half a ball of these two, not quite half of this one. You know, I've got them smushed down so they all look about the same, but this one still weighs just a little bit more. So plenty of yarn left over. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I'm happy with the hat. Yay. Yay me. It's called my fangirl hat over on my project pages if you want to check out the pictures. I don't have a lot of detailed notes or anything over there that look a little bit different. My phone is not playing nice, and so I'm having to borrow the kids' iPad to finish out this podcast. Apologies. The resolution on the iPads is a little better. I might be using the kids' iPads more often for this kind of a thing. So while we're on the topic of finished items, I'm going to show you my finished spinning. Looky there. So the order that they went in was like that. Yeah, let's show you like this. Hold on. So it went from this maroon into the teal, into the green, and then the coral pink. There's a little better color representation. So I went ahead and left them as single ply. The balance was really good. In fact, if you go over to my Instagram page, and that link is in the description box, you can see a video of them hanging out on the line. I'm trying to get so you can see the plies. So there you can see they're about fingering weight. That's a really big finger. They're kind of on the light fingering. Heavy lace weight, light fingering. But yeah, I'm excited about those. I'm still not 100% sure what I'm going to knit with them. I still want to do a shawl. I'm just not 100% sure on which shawl I'm going to do yet. So, whoop, I'm dropping things. I'm about to move. The bag that I had them in was under the book that the iPad is resting on now. If only you could see the setup that I've got going on. So, I think next I'll tell you about what's about to be on my needles. Because I have two big projects coming up this week. The first is Friday, the Joji Locatelli. And pardon my ends, there's a slim chance I might need to like salvage these little pieces that I knit with. But I'm going to use, that's Knit Picks Imagination, I think in the Castle Walls color. And this bluish gray is a Sweet Georgia yarn, sock yarn. And then from that little black stripe up to this little tiny pink, you can just barely see it right there. That is a hand spun BFL that's, I don't have a colorway name for, and I can't even remember the dyer. It was a local lady that I bought it from, and I can't remember, I don't even know if she's still in business. This purple up here is, again, some hand washed, or not hand washed, hand spun yarn. It was a merino tencel blend that I made. And then this up here is Stroll from Knit Picks in the Fedora color. So that's going to be my shawl. I'm very excited about it. I wanted to make sure and swatch and make sure my colors actually look good together before I start casting on for all of those. So that happens on Friday. I'm excited. The other one, I lost the swatch between, here it is. So my son has been asking when his sweater is going to be knit. So I let him go stash diving with me over the weekend, and we picked out a yarn. And his sweater is going to be, this is a Stroll tonal from Knit Picks. Here it is, all caked up. And I've got to cake a second skein as well so that I can alternate between the two. Sorry, this is bugging me. Okay. So we're going to alter, because of how variegated it is, I want to alternate between the two skeins. So as soon as I get that second one caked up, we're going to cast on, and I'm going to be knitting the Flax Light. I also have to do a little bit of math because I think my gauge is a little off, but I do like this fabric. See how it's kind of open? That's on size 5s, which is what the pattern calls for, is a fingering weight yarn on size 5s. But I don't want to make it too much tighter or more dense because I think he'll get more use out of a lighter sweater than he will a really heavy sweater. You know, kind of a layering piece. So I'm going to do a little math, and then we're going to get that one started, hopefully this week. As far as what is actually active on my needles, I knit a little bit on the Florence scarf. I've got a good, is that the front or the back? That's the front. Probably 12 inches or so on this one. So that is coming along nicely. This ball is like a magic ball of yarn. It doesn't seem to matter how much I knit, it never shrinks. It just stays the same size. So I don't know when this one might end up being like my longest running whip on this podcast. I have no clue when I'll get it done. Oh, it's taking forever. It's an easy enough pattern. I don't know. I never seem to knit on it long enough, and I don't knit on it at night. I have to knit on it during the day because I have trouble seeing the stitches at night. And if I can dig down here. Here it is. So this is the Tree of Life Afghan that I'm knitting for our church group, for our prayer shawl ministry. This one is actually going to the pastor and his wife. He's retiring. So it's going to be an actual Afghan size. It's not going to be lap blankets. Excuse me, I got the hiccups. It won't be lap blanket size like I had originally planned. the drape is a lot better on the larger needles, and knitting the baubles is a lot easier on the larger needles. It looks a bit like a mess right now, but once I get it all off the needle where it's not bunched up on the needles, I think it'll look a lot better. So I'm happy with that. And it knits up real fast. This is kind of like nighttime knitting now. I've also put in some work on my scrappy projects. That pink is not nearly as blinding as it is showing up on the screen. Let me get it kind of back. That's a bit more true to color. That's still pretty blinding, but it's not nearly as neon as the screen is showing it to be. So I'm kind of in the middle of a row here. But I think last time I showed you, I'd maybe knit like there. And so I've about doubled that. So still coming along kind of slow. Like I said when I showed it to you the first time, what I'm basically doing is every time I pull out a little ball of scrap yarn, I knit at least one hexapuff, if not two, depending on the size of the yarn, so that I can sew it into the hexapuff blanket. I've got about 6 or 8 more that I need to add on to this. And then I take what's left and I crochet it into the blanket. So progress was made on that, but not a ton. That one I probably won't show again until there's quite a bit more to show you. You'll remember that blinding pink and you'll say, oh, it's way down here, and you've knit so much more. That's the plan. I'm missing a project. There was another one that I showed. Where did it go? I was more organized the first time around. I hope you guys can appreciate the effort. This one is so much more scattered. It's so much worse. I was so much better the first time around. Okay, so the yarn that I dyed for the downriver cowl, that the variegated, I used the light and some of the medium, and there was so much left. I wanted to do a shawl out of it. It was a really pretty color, but I wanted to make sure I was going to use all of it up. So I decided to cast on a hitchhiker. Oh, it's so gorgeous. I love this. I love how the hitchhiker breaks up a variegated yarn and really shows off a variegated yarn to its full potential. So there that is. This is all in the medium color so far, and then I will add in the darker. And really the only part that's darker is like some of that purple is much darker than this purple. So that is all that is actively on my needles. I still feel like I'm forgetting to show you guys something. I had so many whips there for a couple of weeks, and it really does feel like now that I have the boxy done and the hat done and the cowl done, yeah, like it just still feels like I should have more to show you. But yeah, that's all that's on my needles right now. So nothing, I haven't put anything else on the spinning wheel yet. I'll probably, I think I'm going to spin up some Into the World in that brown color I showed you guys a couple weeks ago. I think that's going to be the next project for the needles. I had this whole thing where I was going to show you how I knit. I talked about it a little bit, and I've since like taken everything that was, I had like a whole setup on the needles to show you, and I've taken that off. So I don't want to make you sit here and cast on one day. If you're really interested in how I knit and want to see how I knit, if you are a left-handed knitter and you are having issues and you would like me to do any kind of a tutorial on how I manage to work around those issues, let me know, and I will like put the mirror on the kid's iPad, and like I have a setup where it'll like show you my hands. It's not a very good video quality, but it would show you that, if that's something you're interested in seeing. Because it's not impossible to get an image exactly like the designer designed it, by knitting left-handed. You do have to do those little tiny mental gymnastics. Like when you're doing an increase or decrease, you might have to do it in the opposite way. You might have to do, this one first over that one. You still get the direction of the increase. You can't do it in the order that it says written. You have to flip it. And yeah, like reading charts in a different direction, just some simple little things that you have to do. But for the most part, I still end up with stuff that looks like it's supposed to. It's very rare that I'm not able to look at a chart and be like, okay, I'll just read it this way and we're good to go. Most of the time, that works. Every once in a while, I run across one where it's just a very odd chart where stitches, like you're moving stitch markers around and stuff, and that doesn't always work out well. You could do it backwards, but it's harder. I don't know. This one definitely made me think while I was knitting it. That was for sure. And so yeah, I'm going to cut all that part out because I already kind of talked to you about my weird knitting habits. And I do have some pies that I have to make today because Emerson asked for a buttermilk pie for his graduation party tonight. It's not like going to be a huge party. It's kindergarten after all, but Grandma and Grandpa and Great Grandpa are all going to come have pie after his little graduation ceremony tonight. So I've got to make pie and get hopefully get these edited and up on YouTube. And the upcoming week is just a week full of getting the kids through the last week of school, and then they start summer school for 2 weeks, and then we have summer vacation, and I think cousins are coming down this weekend to visit, so we're gonna have a busy fun weekend with cousins. Yeah, hopefully lots of knitting gets accomplished. And with that, I will let you guys go. Thank you again for watching. I do appreciate it. I would love, love, love for you to go over and join the Ravelry group. It's very quiet over there at the moment. I would love to get some chatter started over there. But I just adore and appreciate every comment left on YouTube, on Facebook. If you have any questions that you would like me to answer on the podcast, you can always message me or start a thread over on Ravelry. Make sure and like the video if you enjoyed it. Share it with your friends. And I think I've begged you to love me enough. I will let you go, and we will see you next week.